the importance to a degree of embracing whatever your affliction is. Like every man is I don't even want to call it a curse, but every man is donned some sort of affliction. Whether it's an obsessive personality, there's some sort of disorder that nature bakes into men in order to create outliers. And then I started thinking about addiction, and I started thinking about, like, how do we grapple with these things as a society? People that are mired in a concentric circle, of their own filth, their own sort of ugliness. Like, how do we grapple with this? And I've come to the inescapable conclusion that there's only two true ways out of addiction. There's two genuine pathways. And I don't even want to call it out. I almost want to call it in, because both of them require, to some degree, leaning into it heavy and using it as sort of like an armored plating. Okay? Because look, if you do have an addiction to something, I promise you that's something that you will have to fight the rest of your life. It never goes away. You can only suffocate it. You can only strangle things for too long before they start to rear their ugly head in other areas. So that's been a time tested, actually failed method, is people trying to pretend that the addiction doesn't exist or trying to distract themselves from it. All you're doing is plugging in the battery pack, and you're gonna make that motherfucker come back 100 times stronger when it rears its head. So you basically have two choices if you have any kind of obsessive personality or affliction. Okay. And I want you to understand this, because this is important. I started out by looking very hard into people who have addictions that are also very high functioning people. Okay. And the first person that comes to mind is Michael Jordan. Motherfucker has a debilitating gambling addiction. Like, whatever bug gambling addiction is, he's got the fucking strongest strain. Okay. There's a lot of stories that have crept in around the crevices. There's a lot of, if you go on forums and shit, there's a lot of like fact verified stories of stuff that he's done around surrounding gambling. But here's the deal. Jordan positioned himself as such a giant. In other words, he became such a Herculean, powerful earner income, became the greatest fucking ever at his craft. Okay. And what that did is it actually rebranded the addiction as something that just has no impact. It just has no impact, and it's all branding. The guy makes so much fucking money that essentially he's overpowered the addiction. If an ordinary man had the kind of bug that Jordan had, they'd be fucking flatlined instantly, squashed to dust. But Jordan, and you can almost look, this is my personal theory, okay? My personal theory is that whatever pathology drives that man to gamble as hard as he does, his basketball prowess and his basketball proficiency, I believe, was actually the defense mechanism to cover that up. 100%. So what I'm saying is, even though that impulse may have been germinating and it may have been very tiny inside him at one point, I do believe his talent and everything that kind of spurned forth from that was an ab reaction. It was a reaction to essentially eclipse that fucking force. And so now you got a billionaire who can fucking do whatever the fuck he pleases. He can engage in degeneracy. He can fucking gamble everything he fucking wants. His income has basically overpowered it in such a way. So that's one option. You either become such an income earning fucking prolific machine, a cash powered machine, to where you can basically survive whatever the fuck output you got. That's one pathway. And the other pathway is you consume whatever it is that's plaguing you so much, so often, in such high doses that you basically just consume its spirit. You basically just engulf the spirit, the very essence of the thing that you're consuming, to the point where it just becomes part of the mosaic. It just becomes kind of part of like the tapestry of your life. And now when you walk, it's just been integrated. It's been integrated. It's not something that you fight. It's not something that you resist. It's something that has sort of crystallized itself and kind of baked itself into the organism through intense heat and temperature and pressure. And then you, everything you do is sort of like a funnel to that thing that you're obsessed with. You know what I mean? Look, this plays out on a daily fucking basis. You have people who love to fucking trade. You got fucking gamblers. You got fucking crypto guys. You got guys on Wall Street taking huge shots. But a lot of these guys have set up these little functional mechanisms, like these other little income streams, to essentially feed the obsession. So that's what they've done. They've casted a very wide net, and whatever they catch, whatever, you know, when they eat what they kill, they funnel the obsession. So basically everything in their life becomes a tunnel to the next lick. And that's how a lot of very high powered people operate. But where you get clapped really, really hard is when you get caught in between one of those two modes that I just outlined for you. And you get someone who's addicted, but they're consuming aimlessly and they're consuming mindlessly, and they're kind of trapped in that middle. Those guys die real quick. They die real quick. They get clapped. End up giving up the ghost too early in life. And that's just kind of, there really is no way out. There really is no way out. And I think that's a peace offering. That's not something that I think that's something that should feel alleviating to a lot of people. Knowing that you have to kind of embrace whatever kind of personality traits that you've been blessed with. Like, that's just kind of the direction that everything's headed.